Donald Trump has been lying, and it's time someone called him out on it with the truth. Not his truth, but the real facts. And that's what I'm going to do today. Stick around to the end, and I'll share with you what a fair deal would really look like. In his first term, Donald Trump negotiated a new trade agreement called the USMCA, and ever the master of self-promotion, he declared it to be the greatest deal ever. But now, in his second term, he's complaining about it. He's saying it's terrible the way Canadian dairy farmers are treating American farmers. One could almost feel sorry for him if he had inherited this deal from a Democratic president. But no, this is his own deal. Poor Donald Trump. And so he claims that Canadian dairy farmers are protected by a 400% tariff. Now, admittedly, trade deals can be complicated, but what's the truth? Canada does impose tariffs on American dairy products, but those tariffs are trivial for the volumes of dairy that Canada imports. Yes, the tariffs can climb sky high, over 300%, but the level of trade has never reached the point where those tariffs would actually take effect. And why doesn't the United States export more dairy products to Canada? The reason is simple. Canadians just don't want American dairy products. For example, American farmers inject their cows with hormones to increase milk production, and Canadians just aren't interested. Or consider cheese. I've been to the United States and I've sampled their cheeses. They're cheaper, but they're of poorer quality. It just isn't up to our standards. For Canadians who have their own award-winning cheeses, there isn't much interest in American cheese. So to my American friends, do yourself a favor and try some Canadian Oka or Mount Jacob cheese. But I digress. So the tariffs are smaller than Trump claims, and they've never been imposed at the highest levels. And Canadians just aren't interested in American dairy products. So Trump is not telling the truth. But there is something else he isn't telling the truth about, and that's dairy subsidies. Canadian dairy farmers don't get any government subsidies, but American dairy farmers get $22 billion a year from their government. In fact, 73% of their earnings come from subsidies. If Canada was to give up our supply chain management, we would have to go the American route and start giving our farmers subsidies. Proportionately, that would be $2 billion a year. But in an era when we're trying to massively increase defense spending at the behest of Donald J. Trump, that isn't going to happen. So Trump isn't telling the truth, and he's just trying to score some points in the American heartland at the cost of the truth. And that's just plain wrong. So what would a fair dairy deal look like? Either it would involve small tariffs on both sides, or it would involve subsidies on both sides. As a convinced capitalist, I think that subsidies are the wrong way to go. Let me know what you think in the comments.